So the government haven't got the guts to stand up publicly and argue with us in reality, or oppose what we're asking for here, which is an emergency review of the minimum wage and, in our view, the need to increase it to as an absolute minimum €15. So they're going to accept our motion, but with absolutely no intention of actually acting on it. And the public out there should know that. That is the cynical way in which politics operates in here, and the way this government behaves. They're spineless, but then behind the scenes, they operate to maintain the status quo and effectively ignore the really desperate situation that working people are facing at the moment as a result of the government's own failures. Now, the only defence really the government's put up is to say, well, inflation's not our fault; it's a global phenomenon, and there's not a lot we can do. We can take some measures, but it's not really our fault. And I think again we need to seriously challenge that narrative. This government, along with European governments and other governments, have championed the privatisation and deregulation of energy markets over the last 20 years, and are showing no intention of rolling back on that. In fact, quite the opposite. When People Before Profit brought a motion in October warning about the escalating energy crisis and asking at that time for price controls on energy, the government reiterated its commitment to so-called competitive markets in energy. Right? So when Sean Fleming says what he said the other day, this is not some maverick comment about shopping around. It is the government's policy. And it has been the government's policy, and Fianna Fáil and Fine Gael, for 20 years. Since you removed the not-for-profit mandate of the ESB, since you privatised Bord Gáis, energy prices have gone through the roof, and now we are really paying the bitter price for that. That's the truth. And of course that's part of an international phenomena, but you lot championed it and you still are committed to it. And it is in black and white in the speeches of ministers, even as recently as Ossian Smith's speech this week, where he again referred to the competitive market. And I'm just amazed that nobody is questioning this in the media. There is no debate about the link between the deregulation and privatisation of energy supply and the ability of energy companies to ratchet up the cost of energy to stratospheric levels that are now literally impoverishing people, that will claim between 15 and 2,000, maybe 2,500 vulnerable people will unnecessarily die this winter because they can't afford to heat their homes. Excess winter mortality, which is worse than this in this country than most other countries in Europe. And again, people need to know this. Prior to the deregulation and privatisation of energy supply in this country, energy costs were lower in Ireland by a significant margin than the rest of Europe. Today, they are higher. Between 15 and 20% on average higher than the rest of Europe. That is your fault. So let's be absolutely clear, that is your fault. Why are energy prices higher here? Because you allow the energy companies to profiteer and price gouge. And people, I mean, I'm just going to shout this from the rooftops, and we are going to shout it from the rooftops until it penetrates into the debate. The companies that are impoverishing people with these massive increases in energy prices are making massive profits. On a global scale, it's simply staggering. Shell and BP, between them, 40 billion last year in profits. But wait for this. If you just look at Shell, Shell's share of that last year was 19.3 billion in profits. Do you know what their profits were the year before that? 4.8 billion. Incredible. Their profits have quadrupled in 1 year. In 1 year. And the same is happening here in Ireland. Energy's profits up 46% last year, up 45% the year before. ESB, 616 million profits 2020, set to be over 700 million for 2021. Okay? So what is being taken out of the pockets of working people, of pensioners and the vulnerable is going into the pockets of other groups of people who get paid dividends. So the rich are making money out of the misery of the poor. And that is going on in the housing sector as well. It's the same thing. Rents up last year, on average 10%, now they're saying it was 7%, the year before 7%. In total, rents up about 68% over the last decade. Similar increases in the rental income of landlords. Rental income of landlords up 16% in the last 2 years. They're creaming it at the expense of working people, and you lot are facilitating it. So against that background, we say it's time for workers to fight back. They can't take this lying down as absolute minimum to have a minimum wage of €15, which still wouldn't allow you to pay the rent in Dublin, by the way. The idea that the existing minimum wage, I mean, it's just shocking. You know, do you guys get it at all? Rents in my area now, on average, €2,200 a month. You need €26,000 after-tax income just to pay the rent, and you'd be paying 100% of it. But somebody on the minimum wage wouldn't have that. They'd be paying about 120% of their income to pay the average rent in our area. Or for one bedroom, $1,500 across Dublin. In my area, it's about $1,900 to get a one-bedroom apartment. It's just beyond shocking. And you just won't do anything about it because they have the right to make profits. But you could do something about it, and it's done in other countries. Rent controls, set the rents. Decide you can only charge this much for these square meters of rental property. That is done in other countries. And it's the only way, by the way, we're going to deal with it. Even a rent freeze at the level rents are at will not do it. We need to set rents. It is done in other countries. There's no reason why it can't be done here. There is simply no justification for anybody, vulture funds, landlords or anybody else, setting rents at the current levels they are. They are guaranteed, and they are, by the way, as we speak, escalating the homeless crisis again. There was a brief respite from homelessness because you had to bring in eviction ban, something you said, by the way, couldn't happen during COVID. Briefly, you brought it in, homelessness went down, then you got rid of the eviction ban, homelessness is on the way back up again. And now it has got to the absolutely extraordinary situation. I am dealing with 3 families who are working and are in homeless accommodation, and they are being told by the local authority to get out of the homeless accommodation because their income has gone above the income threshold. That's the reward they get for working. Get out of the homeless accommodation when they haven't got a chance of getting anything in the area. Being evicted from homelessness. It's reaching obscene levels. So we say, we've given up on you lot, to be honest, right? And what we're saying with this motion to workers is get out and fight now, right? Because the landlords, the big business people are exploiting the misery and suffering of people, and it's time for workers to stand up and put in pay claims. Insist, like the Duns workers, that we get at least a 10% pay increase. And insist that at an absolute minimum, nobody should have to work for less than €15 an hour. But on top of that, we want the price controls on energy. We want the rent controls in order to bring rents to affordable levels. This government has no interest, in truth, in addressing the root causes of this inflationary spiral, because you are in reality collaborating with the corporate interests that are benefiting from the suffering that people are now having inflicted on them. So I commend our motion to the House.